So my friends, I have very sad news for you if you're into the law. If we go by this AEW All Out 2024 pay-per-view, well, a lot of crimes were broken, and a couple of people may actually be dead. Also, thank you very much for joining me, Simon Miller, for this review of AEW All Out. Also, those ups and downs, where I take the finger apart and give a good button up and give bad bits of down. That was gibberish, but listen, I am in Canada, that's why I'm in a hotel room, and it's like midnight, because I have just watched the damn thing, so we have to be quiet, but we still gesticulate like our lives depended on it. And again, I've watched this thing, lives were in danger. Amazingly, we did kick off with MJF versus Daniel Garcia. And again, given what I know now at the end of the thing, I totally get it. Garcia came out the blocks right away though, because he hates this man, but of course Max is a piece of trash too, so he was happy to reciprocate. When essentially, they both fell over the top rope. They had this horrible landing when MJF was like, man, count him out, ref. This was the strangest 9.99 get back in the ring I've seen for a while. Danny Garcia kind of jumped back in there like a frog. Friedman then really did become super vicious though, as if he was trying to get in a comic book, because he just wailed on Dan's head until the cut that was on his skull busted open again, so we had blood. I had a quick think to myself, I was like, I don't know if this is a blade job, as the professionals say, or if we did this hard way. I mean, it looked pretty damn brutal. They then kept trying to kill each other with moves off the top rope, where Daniel Garcia tried to rip the tongue out of MJF's mouth, because why wouldn't you do that? When the commentator started to say, listen, Danny boy, if you're going to win this thing, you need to start focusing on the 1, 2, 3s. At the moment, you were too obsessed with giving him pain. Turned out they were 100% correct. What I really did appreciate about this, though, is that it was totally different from MJF's recent matches, because it had a deliberate slow pace to it, because one, we were trying to tell a story, but also two, when one of the other guys was on offense, they both decided, I'm just going to hit you as hard as I can. Beforehand, if somebody had given that Men in Black flashy thingy that wipes your memory, I wouldn't have been surprised, and they totally forgot that wrestling is a work. We then got into the submissions, because we got a Boston Crab and a LaBelle lock, but I don't think either of them is from Boston or called LaBelle, so that's gibberish. When Danny Garcia remembered, there's a sharpshooter, there's a Scorpion Deathlock, but I called it the Dragon Tamer, and he locked it in. But he did that thing that he kept doing in the C2. He let back too far, which is when MJF saw his head, and he reversed it into an armbar. He then switched it to this horrible move that he must have learned from Zack Sabre Jr. And do you know how Garcia got out of this? He put his Tootsie Toe on the rope. So there's a lesson, kids. Don't cut your toenails. The most important part, if you are trying to keep up with the narrative, is that at one point, Danny was basically choking this guy, and his arm was about to fall from the sky, which could have signaled the end of the match, when Garcia decided he didn't want to win that way and he was going to hit a pile driver. And he only got a 1-2-ooh. I was like, dude, you are so going to regret that. Now, this was a jumping pile driver. Like I say, I only got a 1-2-ooh, so I'm just going to throw a quick down in there, because it just makes the Tiger Driver story with MJF feel so silly. For months, Will Ospreay was like, well, I can't possibly use that move. I would kill someone. And here, Max was being dropped on his head again. It was like, still count out of a 3. So look, it's not a big deal. Nobody cares. It popped in my brain. I couldn't stop thinking about it, because I am a nerd down. Garcia still didn't care, because they went back to the top of Tina the Turnbuckle, but this is when MJF was done. He bit this man, because why wouldn't you do that? Then he sort of played around with the referee. He whacked Dan right in the penis when he hit the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, surprise roll-up, and he got the win. Amazingly, MJF wanted to shake hands after this, but we did give Daniel Garcia his heat back, because he then booed MJF right in the penis when he went to the top rope for a final time, and he finally hit that pile driver. Once again, this was just a sign of things to come. Everybody was going after attempted murder. But it still seems a little bit weird to me, because if Daniel Garcia is hanging around, he could have just won this one. But I suppose we'll have to watch this space. But as an opening match on a pay-per-view, I tell you, this had some real grit to it. It was very compelling. Then learned that Swerve, Strickland and Hangman Adam Page had been locked in their locker rooms, because AEW was worried that they would escape and start fighting like children. So essentially, they'd been grounded. This is when it was time to sort out the AEW tag team titles, because it was Claudio Castagnoli and Wheeler Yuta taking on the Young Bucks. At the time, I had a joyous occasion, but once again, knowing what I do know, by the end of the damn thing, I don't know what to make of it. The best part is something happened to my stream during this, so it fell out for a few minutes. When it came back on, Nicholas Jackson just booted Barry the Barricade by accident, and the commentators were talking about people's undercarriages. was like, did I turn on the wrong pay-per-view? Matthew kept looking at Claudio because he didn't like him at all, but the Young Bucks did beat up on Wheeler Yuta for a while, and this was just because Castagnoli was going to warm up his palm and get that hot tag, and honestly, in terms of running wild in professional wrestling, well, he may be the best at it. It was so good too because he just hit Sagat uppercut after Sagat uppercut after Sagat uppercut. And even after the Young Bucks escaped to the floor, Claudio was like, well, I can come out there too. And he hit a bunch more Sagat uppercuts. Doesn't that just sum up professional wrestling and how great it can be? I am pretty sure Claudio Castagnoli can do any single thing he would want to when it comes to performing, but he knows it's all about a good old Sagat uppercut. Eventually, Wheels was back into this, and they used the Young Bucks as projectiles to throw them into each other when Yuta busted out that seatbelt pin for a 1-2-ooh. I don't know how they timed that so well, but it totally got me. Castagnoli kept on coming as well, and he was able to get out of the way of bang for your buck when he went back to the Sagat uppercuts. When Tony Schiavone said, man, this is Claudio, there's nothing he can't do. When he got hit with the BTE trigger. I was like, well, he can't dodge that. Turned out I was totally wrong because when they went for another BTE trigger, Claudio did stop it. I had egg on my face. When we got some dives, it did feel like the time for dives. It also meant Claudio could do his big swing and he got to 20 revolutions, if you like to know about such statistics. Does make you a bit of a geek. The Bucks then started to hit a bunch of kicks that were super, but even then the BCC were able to come out on top here, and they hit the rocket launcher, but man, this is when it all went bad, because Nicholas Jackson glared Castagnoli's foot, whereas Matt Jackson got his knees up, and amazingly, hit the most devastating move in all of sports entertainment surprise roll-up, and he beat Wheeler Yuta. So this was another well-worked match, and everybody in it is so damn good. And I think we should give Wheeler Yuta some time to talk soon. He is just missing some serious mic time, and he could be even more over than he is now. So I am going to give it an up, but there is a down here too, because as good as this was, the AEW Tag Team division does feel like it needs a little bit more story, and it needs a little bit more direction. And I understand here the gap between All In and All Out is only 2 weeks, but it kind of feels like it's been going on for a few months now, and we have such good talent. I just think we could do more. It's good to do more, because then we're doing more. Should have been a teacher. That's a down. When the crowd popped for a graphic, because it was international title time, Claudio Castagnoli versus Pac. Now there is nothing I can do to explain this. I mean, even when they were in the ring looking at each other, this Chicago crowd went absolutely nuts. And when they did hit the go button, well, the best way to explain it is they're not human. And I mean this literally. They must be wrestling aliens from a wrestling planet who came down here to entertain us. So far, they're doing a stand-up job. And at one point, Pac did a corkscrew to the outside just because he was annoyed. When they got back in the ring and they were flipping, they were dipping, and they were skipping, when Pac found himself on the outside, so Will gave him a corkscrew. Essentially, it was anything you can do, I can do better, or exactly the same. He also made it very clear that Ricochet was watching on from the back here, and he's probably going to be the next contender. Though I do find it absolutely baffling he wasn't on this pay-per-view. I mean, have him fight a broom. They were then just booting each other in the face, and honestly, it's the reversals and it's the transitions. It was like playing somebody on WWE 2K who is too good at the game, and you cannot hit that R2 button fast enough. But this was in real life. Like, if you took this footage and you put some power bars and some meters all over it, and you showed it to some moron, they'd probably totally believe this came from your Xbox. Even stuff like the Liger Bomb Pack hit was the best Liger Bomb you've ever seen from your life. And they went to the top and they hit a standing Spanish fly like it was nothing. Like we do that every day. I suppose they actually do. Pac then joined in this evening of death because he hit a German suplex and a poison rana on the ring apron. And I don't even know how he did that. I mean, there's quite literally not enough room. But once more, because they're not of this world, they figured out how to do it. Ospreay was then playing possum, which means Pac didn't actually hit a black arrow, and that turned into a 1-2-ooh, and then we were getting the brutalizer, but Will Ospreay was able to get to the ropes when he was then flipping out of German suplexes from the top rope and landing on his feet and hitting him blades for a 1-2-ooh, and I was spinning around like I was Kylie Minogue because I didn't know what to do. Ospreay then powered out of another brutalizer. He hit another hidden blade for a 1-2-ooh when they were just doing all of these moves, and somehow nobody could actually land one. We even got a poison rana when people were landing on their feet. When Pac got out of the Stormbreaker, so Will decided, you know who inspired me from day one? It was AJ Styles. He hit the Styles Clash, and somehow he got the 1-2-3. But nobody lost here. Listen, I haven't done it justice at all. Not only is it a match of the year candidate, for one of the best matches we've ever seen in AEW. The finishing sequence was absolutely amazing, and I know some people go, they don't sell. Just look at it in the way that it's meant to be looked at. This is the kind of wrestling they do like doing, and in that sense, it was nigh on perfect. To the point it doesn't just get an up, it gets a golden up. Kind of annoyed a bit. I'm in this hotel room and I have to talk quietly, otherwise I'd be wiggling and jiggling. When I am done, I'm going to watch it again. When you would have thought that the street fight between Willow Nightingale and Kris Statlander was in a bad position, but they went, oh yeah, hold my beer, and they went out there and they totally smashed it too. This is because we had everything. We had tables, we had chairs, and we had Simone, the Spanish announce table. And at one point, Kris laid Willow on one of these tables, went for a swanton, and just crashed through it. Now, this was to the outside. I don't think Nightingale got out of the way in time because Statlander's boot whacked her right in the head. So we were starting as we meant to go on. The most surprising bit too is when they were fighting on the entranceway and Willow hit Kris with a light tube. So when was the last time we've seen a light tube on mainstream American wrestling? That is a rarity. Statlander then had blood everywhere because of course she did, but that just wound her up, so she speared Willow off the stage, through a table, and by this point, you would have thought they were done. They went for like another 10 minutes. We'd also used every single weapon possible as once again the fans got louder and louder and louder when Kris decided, well, I'm not done here, and she poured thumbtacks on the floor. But even this was really inventive because she went to give Willow Nightingale the axe kick. Willow got out of the way, meaning she basically did the splits into some pins. Now, I thought about it, it's one of the worst things ever. Nightingale then followed this up with a DVD into the thumbtacks for a 1-2-ooh. When bless his Excalibur, he was like, man, it's gonna be a horrible trip home for Kris Statlander. She has thumbtacks all stuck in her ass. She did. We then essentially got a Spanish fly into the tacks, because again, why wouldn't we do that? When Statlander just went, look what I found, it's a chain, and she hit a discus lariat. And then after more violence and after more sheer brutalization, all of a sudden there was a dog collar. I was like, well, that's a totally different stipulation. Didn't work because Willow then busted her spine into the tacks, which is the name of my brand new EP. So Kris gave her a tombstone into the tacks. I was like, somebody please come out here and get these tacks out of the ring. It got so disgusting because we got that chain or part of the dog collar and we strangled Willow Nightingale in such a way that, yeah, if she hadn't have passed out and the referee hadn't have stopped Kris, Willow Nightingale would have actually died. But thankfully the official did do their job. It was over, Kris had won, and then Excalibur had the best line. He was like, you know what? I don't think they're ever going to be friends again. Seriously though, this once again was next level effort, and if you like street fights, well, you'd be hard pressed to find a better one than this. So also, given the placement and given that it was back-to-back matches, I don't think we've ever done this before. This gets the golden up too. I mean, essentially what Kris and Willow did is they took the energy of the fans, and rather than have to fight against it because they were tired, they just kept it going. That is so damn impressive. So once again, in terms of a 1-2 punch, that's bloody brilliant. We then had a quick interview with Will Ospreay, just so Ricochet could walk in. The only thing I didn't like here is Will was like, oh man, yeah, you got to now start doing more than just earning a paycheck. I don't think that's fair. There's lots of people in WWE that do both. Ricochet then just went get better over again. Not gonna lie, as excited as I am to watch those two fight for one more time, this was really, really weird. When out came the greatest sports entertainer in the world, it was the Continental Champion Okada. Now he was taking on Takeshita, Mark Briscoe and Orange Cassidy, so this should have been called the wrestling match with all your favourite wrestlers in it, but it doesn't really roll off the tongue. And admit it, if you compare it to everything else, it didn't hit those levels, but I think one of the reasons all the other matches on this card were so good is because we needed an injection of fun at this point, and these four came out and they gave us it. They carried on the theme of the night, which was just to do all the moves, and Orange Cassidy was able to get on top with a DDT. He then punched somebody in the face, so Takeshita was here and he punched someone in the face. So Mark Briscoe was here and he punched someone in the face. When Okada was here, and surprise, surprise, he punched someone in the face. 1.2, Okada and Takeshita were down on the outside, so Mark Briscoe delivered a Mick Foley type elbow to the floor. And of course, Orange did one too, but his was the lazy version. Boy, oh boy, do I still love this gimmick. Everybody then hit a suplex apart from poor Orange, but of course this was just tying into an easy pop, because later on he hit the Orange punch and he got his suplex and everybody went, yeah. So you see what I'm saying here? This was designed just to entertain you and allow you to smile without the overhanging threat of death. We also got to the point when the conglomeration did fall out because Mark Briscoe and Orange Cassidy went at it, when Okada and Takeshita got rid of them, and those two started to spar. And look, if we are going off the live audience, People want to see that match pop. Okada then went for the Rainmaker, but Takeshita turned it into the least devastating move in all of sports entertainment, the Blue Thunderbomb. And did it work? Of course it didn't, it never does. Briscoe then had it won because he was able to hit the froggy bow. When we got to the you hit me, I hit you, we all hit each other a little bit. This when Takeshita was just busting out German suplexes. Now I know he's just come back from the G1, but at some point we got to light a fire under his ass. He's too good. Mark then had it won again because he hit the J Driller, but we just kept getting 1-2 oohs and people being pulled out of the ring. The main reason we were doing this is because no champions were changing hands this evening. Because by this point everybody had filled up their meters, so even though Orange was able to hit one, he then made a mistake, so Okada went ha ha, and he smashed him with the Rainmaker, and he pinned a piece of fruit for the 1-2-3. So yes, I do totally understand people going, man, I didn't really feel this four-way, but I actually think secretly enhanced the card like I've already talked about. This Okada, and this Orange Cassidy, and this Mark Briscoe, and this Takeshita, they're all damn wonderful up. So as always, I am your humble servant. And honestly, I would have given Chicago an up anyway because I love it there. But in terms of what you brought this evening, you bet your ass you get it up. It was then time for Shida versus Mercedes Mone for the TBS Championship. I'm still waiting to hear word about Britt Baker. I mean, it's fair to say this is the first time in proceedings when the fans did just lull a little bit. And in terms of online chatter, I have seen this dividing people right down the line. But I actually think they whipped each other's ass good and proper. I mean, at the start, Shida had clearly cheated and walked into this match with her meters full because she hit 4 drop kicks. Shida then replied a reverse cloverleaf, which is a sentence you can only say to a wrestling fan, but Mercedes was able to get to the rope when, yes, they started to boot each other in the skull. This was another one when I think they looked at all the other matches and gone, well, we're just going to have to hit each other really hard. And the other person said, fine. This carried on because Mone was just booing her right in the ribs section. So I was having a meltdown. I was like, Shida, I have seen other wrestlers. Why aren't you wearing tape around your tum-tum for obvious ultimate protection? Shida instead just used her knee and careered that right into Mercedes' nose. When she moved into the corner and she hit the 10 punches, I was like, you're damn right, bring back those 80s moves. They were then just going back to these lariats and punching each other in the face, and there is no way they are not bruised this morning, because again, it wasn't like this. When you pull them, it was just, I hope you die. We also then did get the 3 Amigos, which was very interesting because Mone never really hits it, but that's because when she went for the splash of the frogs, Shida got her knees up. She too then went spam crazy because she hit 3 Falcon Arrows and that still only got a 1-2 ooh. So she must have had a chat with Cody Rhodes. Now it really did feel like Shida had this one at one point because she hit this awesome katana, but Mercedes freaked out so much she kind of bailed to the outside when she found Kenny the kendo stick. Now they fought over this, and Shida was going to hit her, but then realized, oh no, if I do that, I get disqualified, and I can't win the belt, so she dropped it on the floor. Wrestling has to stop doing that for at least 6 months. It's happened 3 times, and we're only on the 7th of September. She then missed the Meteora, which was terrible because Mercedes had been working over her knee the whole time when she hit the Mone Maker, and she just beat her for the 3. I admit it was quite the anticlimactic finish. I do think it was a solid match though, and one that we need to go back to after the fact when you aren't comparing it to everything else, and I think then it will actually improve. I think they had very good chemistry together, and again, they held nothing back here, so I am going to give it an up, but I have it down as well, because Camille just came out after and hugged Mercedes, and I was like, oh yeah, you got banned from ringside, and that didn't tie into anything. In fact, all it told me is that Mercedes doesn't need you, so why do you hang around? Now, they may be able to sort this out down the line, but in terms of pay-per-view night, down. When we did indeed have our last official match of the evening, Bryan Danielson versus Jack Perry for the World Championship. And listen, we already know that Bryan isn't going to be around for a long time, so whatever he wants to give me, I'm just going to enjoy. That sounded really bad. Perry obviously got massive heat here too because he was in Chicago and they hate this guy. And sure, we got a few CM Punk chants earlier, but actually when we got into the nitty-gritty of the match, everybody basically shut up. Danielson came out to the final countdown too, so that's another 250 grand. And at the start here, they did some grappling. By Jove, Jack actually came out on top. It was fine though, because eventually Danielson caught Jack out of midair and applied the submission. And this was essentially the structure for the whole match. We did some wrestling, we did some hard shots to the face. When we got halfway through the match, and shenanigans arrived. Now Jack Perry was also going after Bryan's neck the whole time here, including doing a DDT to the outside. I understand that Bryan Danielson is one of the best wrestlers ever, but Jack Perry more than held his own here. I do not think we give him enough credit. And he even applied a cattle mutilation at one point and was stomping on Danielson's head, which does freak me out. When they were fighting in the corner, the referee got in the way and they were down. You know the deal with that. They're going to be dead for at least 5 minutes. The Young Bucks were out so fast and they totally wrecked Bryan, and I do appreciate this because no one actually thought Jack Perry was going to walk away with the world title and retire the American Dragon, but at least here, because he was getting murked by 3 people, well, I mean, you could suspend your disbelief a little bit. Also not really. Hopefully the BCC were watching this and they were able to run off the Young Bucks when we got our big callback to Anarchy in the arena, because Perry hit the big knee, but Bryan Danielson kicked out at 2. Danielson also returned fire with a psycho knee of his own. And oh my gosh, Jack Perry sold that like death. And this one, I do have to give a round of applause to. It didn't get the victory. I thought that was going to be the end. Instead, they just slapped each other, where once again, we were quite literally just slapping each other. When Perry went for another knee, Bryan dodged him, he hit the knee, and that was it. Although it wasn't. And Jack Perry kicked out again. This was also good, and also the way that Perry sold those knees, I genuinely think it may be the #1 of all. For some reason though, when Perry had taken his med pack, he decided just to stand there like he was some martyr. Actually, he was on his knees. That's when Danielson did run in. He did boot him right in the face and he got the 1, 2, 3. So this was just a well-worked wrestling match, and probably benefited from the fact it wasn't the proper main event. That's because, my word, the angle of all angles was about to happen. Because Killswitch appeared in the ring and he beat up Bryan Danielson, and that allowed you to have your moment between Luchasaurus and Jungle Boy, because of course they used to be friends. It also allowed Christian Cage to come out as Chicago groaned like, oh my gosh, he's going to cash in his Money in the Bank briefcase, also known as the Gauntlet contract. I have no idea. But he got stopped because the Blackpool Combat Club came to the ring, including Jon Moxley. That's when I was like, Bryan, you need to run. I wouldn't trust this guy. I was proven right 10 seconds later, but it turned out AEW had so many swerves up its ass because it wasn't Jon Moxley who knocked Bryan Danielson to the canvas. It was Claudio Castagnoli. And man, the look on Bryan's face, somebody give him an Oscar. Pac was joining in this too because he was holding Wheeler Yuta back, who was not part of this and was essentially in tears, and what a performance that was. Well, look at me in the eye, my friends. This is what happened. Jon Moxley had a plastic bag and he put it over Bryan Danielson's head and he tried to choke him. I'm laughing because I'm a little bit worried this actually happened on wrestling TV. Now, do not try this at home. I mean it. Do not try this at home. But if you do that, you cannot breathe and eventually you will die. Now, this is actually a wink and a nod to an angle we have done before. Eddie Kingston will be mad because he has wanted to do it in AEW. But essentially, Moxley killed Bryan Danielson as the old Blackpool Combat Club walked off. They ain't his buddy anymore. So now we got to tune into Dynamite to see what the flub is going on. So I really thought this was great because, once again, I'm going to use that word. It was such compelling stuff, because why would they turn on this man when we all love him? And I suppose it ties into the fact that Moxley said this isn't your company anymore. So when you take the match and you add this on top, I thought it was super brilliant stuff. I'm just getting it up. However, we do have to bring in the crime counter though. This is like the arson that happened on Wednesday. Firstly, yes, it's attempted murder, so that's 1. It also counts as physical assault, so that's 2. And also strangulation, I should say, counts as its own separate entity. So that's 3. So between Jon Moxley and Hangman Adam Page, thanks a lot, you guys. You ruined my game. I was then in tears too, because Excalibur said the words, well, our sanctioned portion of the evening is over, after I just watched a man almost died, but he did mean it too, because it was time for an unsanctioned cage match. Now, of course, it was Swerve Strickland versus Hangman Adam Page, and this is another one. You just have to watch it, because me describing it to you will mean nothing. This was about making you as uncomfortable as possible, and genuinely, I mean it, it could be the most uncomfortable match I've ever watched, and not in a bad way, because that's what they were going for. Swerve is just nuts as well, as he came out with the picture of Hangman burning his house down on his gear. And even before the bell rung and the cage had actually got to the floor, these guys were fighting and we were throwing weapons in the ring. And Swerve and Prince Nana were going to decapitate Hangman Adam Page using the cage. So once again, I was rubbing the crime counter. They weren't messing around either, and some of the shots and throws into the cage were disgusting. When we got that staple gun as our first callback to the Texas Death Match, once again they were stapling each other. When Swerve went on, I know how to escalate this, and he had a picture of Adam's family and he stapled it onto his head. I think it's meant to go on a fridge. I mean, basically it was like getting a work memo and not knowing what to do with it. And Jim Ross did a great job on commentary. And he just summed it up here in a few words. He went, you know what? I think it's too much. Strickland then twonked him in the head with the chair. Once again, this was so slow-paced as we continued to use the weaponry. But it got to the point when you genuinely felt sorry for both of these guys, because I actually thought they were properly in pain. We also had Swerve launching Page like a lawn dart into a chair that was stuck in the corner when we got to the really sick moment, because Strickland went, ha ha, I've got a cinder block, and he did a vertebraker onto a brick. That's a vertebraker onto a brick. We are not in Kansas anymore, Toto. Also probably counts as a crime as well when we got this crazy Swerve stomp through a table. When Adam Page worked his way back into that, when he went, ta-da, look what I've got. It's a piece of wood from the house I burned down, and he tried to stab Swerve Strickland like he's a vampire. It turned out that it was actually Strickland that shanked him right in the face, but that just annoyed Hangman Adam Page, who did smack him in the balls when he powerbombed Swerve Strickland onto the cinder block. So I was like, that's it. You've all got broken backs at the very least, and you're a bunch of idiots. It kind of made me laugh, because right after this, Swerve just threw Hangman into the steel cage. I was like, nah, dude, I can't get up for that now. When instead they got that steel chair again and they were doing death shots. Because they were just going back and forth, eventually it was the cowboy who was in control, and I would just explain this to you as best as I can. As blood poured from both their foreheads, he pulled Swerve's grill out of his mouth when he got a syringe. I don't know if there was something in this syringe or not, but he stabbed it into Swerve's cheek. And maybe it was like some kind of drug which knocked Swerve Strickland out, I don't know. But you had this image of Swerve with the thing stuck in his mouth when Hangman Adam Page got this chair and gave him a chair shot so loud, my mum rang me up from England and said, I think I've heard something. Swerve just fell to the floor like he was dead. The ref was like, dude, we can't carry this on. He's most definitely knocked out. So Adam Page kind of won, but did he? Did he? Go and look at his face. His picture told 1,000 stories. Whereas like, well, I finally got what I wanted, but I'm not sure about the cost. So once again, I cannot tell you that I like this match, because I don't think anybody was meant to like this match. It was two enemies who are so in-depth in their rivalry they can't see the sense. But in terms of a piece of drama, or wrestling being more than just two dudes fighting, well, I'm absolutely giving it an up. And to be honest with you, it's on the cusp of a golden up, but this is such an acquired taste. But you really need to be a talented performer to pull this off. And my gosh, they've done it numerous times now. I wouldn't put it past doing it again. It really is something very special and also completely screwed up. End of AEW All Out, and in terms of a match card from start to finish, this is one of the best things that AEW has ever done. There is a little something for everyone, and it has left us going, well, we have to tune into Dynamite, which from my own personal views is something a pay-per-view should always do. So overall, it doesn't just get it up, it's a golden up. And man, was I fortuitous, because I got to watch it live at a normal time, usually I'm at home trying not to fall asleep. An absolute classic. Now, please do like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Click the video on the screen, which is ups and downs for my wrestling shows. If you can join me as I review all of them and just do other stuff with the video. I got to lay down anyway, not because I'm tired, but because of that show. It is something we are going to talk about for a long old time. I'll see you soon.